Justin Stewart ending all that for us. Variety of voices there, including the boss of Tesco. And we're joined now by Steve Jones, Executive Director at Focal Point. He also used to work for Tesco. Morning, Steve.
Morning, how you doing?
We're doing all right. In terms of how Tesco are doing, that's quite a turnaround in 1 minute we heard there.
Well,
is that continuing?
Well, it's hard to say, isn't it? If you read everything that they say in the press, all the things that they've leaked seem to suggest that their like-for-likes have gone up, which obviously is a good sign in the current circumstances. But I would imagine that anything under a 0.3% like-for-like increase, which is in line with the market, would be disappointing.
We've had British Retail Consortium price data overnight, and in that data it says that food price deflation has accelerated to a record low. So in September, food prices fell 1.3% on last year's level, and that's only the second time since data began that food prices have fallen by more than 1%. This must be putting enormous pressure on all the players in the industry.
Well, I think if you look at the growth of the discounters and the move from the consumers to the major retailers to the discounters, they are selling products cheaper generally, aren't they?
A lot.
Yeah. And Steve, when you see how the business is being run, I mean, maybe to customers, it's still got a Tesco sign, it's still selling loads of groceries. But are there fundamental changes now compared to the Tesco that used to be before Dave Lewis or when you were there?
Well, I think the biggest change that you've seen recently is a massive reduction they've had in range. And the general rationale for reducing ranges is that you buy more from fewer people, and so you make more money from the people that you're buying from. So anything that didn't show quite a marked uptick in their profits would be surprising.
Asda seems to be the one really suffering. It's difficult to tell because it's owned by Walmart and they don't break out as much detail as, say, you get from Tesco. But what's the chance of Asda slashing prices and having a big comeback and therefore destabilising all the other players?
Well, I think part of the trouble is when you look at organisations that are essentially public companies, as most of the big retailers are in this country, they're competing with Aldi and Lidl. They're private companies, so they can take a much longer-term view on profitability. And I think one of the problems Tesco had, and it was probably the driver of their £268 million question mark, was that they were forced or felt obliged to continue to deliver results to the city on a short-term basis, which the German discounters don't have to do.
And Steve, one thing that has been, we've had this lawsuit that's got a couple of headlines the last couple of days, but the pensions deficit at lots of big companies is something that's been talked about. Tesco has a particularly big one. Do you think we'll hear more today about how they're going to deal with their big pensions deficit?
Well, it's difficult to know because didn't they say they were going to put 257 million extra a year into the pension fund? I think the Tesco pension fund have got the same issue that most people in most large organisations have got. We're not talking about BHS where there's any likelihood that they're going to go bust in the foreseeable future. So we're not looking at a PPF type rescue package. So I don't see, I think it's sort of noise on the line, really.
Steve, thank you very much. Steve Jones, Executive Director at Focal Point there.